Enrage and Ward were two important mechanics introduced to KeyForge and Worlds Collide, and let's just say one definitely had more impact than the other. Warding was a crazy game changer, whereas Enraging was barely implemented at all, and where it was implemented, it wasn't done very well. It tended to have very little effect on the game. That's not to say it wasn't disruptive, because it certainly could be disruptive for a player, but not on the same level as Warding. Many of the Enraged cards in Worlds Collide showed up in Brobnar. Shorty and Mega Shorty are both creatures with Assault 4, meaning they want to fight. Assault 4 is the highest assault in the game, capable of taking out every elusive creature out there besides a few like Lord Envidius or Kulf the Quiet. So, as a result, when they reap, they get enraged, forcing them to fight the next time they're used. Irestaff gives a +1 power counter to the creature it enrages, leaving you with the option of either boosting up one of your own creatures for a future fight, or enraging an enemy creature that would rather reap, but giving it extra power in the process. As the set went on, this sort of self-enraging was refined little by little. In Mass Mutation we got creatures like Gizelhart's Zealot, whose ability synergizes perfectly with the set he appears in. Mass Mutation Sanctum is all about fighting. Just take a look at their card pool and you'll see what I mean, with all sorts of creatures having great fight effects or rewarding you for fighting. So, having a creature that enters play ready and enraged adds great synergy to the house. The rest of the enraged cards in Worlds Collide don't fare much better than what I've talked about within that set already. Soul Fiddle is just Irestaff, but without the power boost or Ember bonus. There's Slimy Jark, who's unsurprisingly the lowest power Brobnar creature in the game, and who's pretty much just the creature version of Pestering Blow, neither of them being very potent cards whatsoever. House Saurian had Draco Praco, who enraged on a much larger scale than these other cards, enraging entire houses at a time. This was useful for hitting reap-heavy houses like Star Alliance or Logos. And there's also Prescriptive Grammarbot, a card that just exists, notable for being the only Logos creature, along with Titan Guardian, possessing the Taunt keyword. And no, I'm not counting Captain Cressage here, although he can acquire it. So clearly, Enrage was not utilized to its fullest potential in Worlds Collide. In Mass Mutation, it gets used a little better, but not by much. Saurian gained Gladiodontus, a creature whose entire identity revolves around fighting, and so finds itself in a situation similar to Shorty's. Its Fight Reap effect reads, if this is the first time Gladiodontus has been used this turn, ready and enrage it. You know you'll be fighting at least once, but there's just an extra layer of versatility here that Shorty didn't have. Shorty did have that Assault 4 though, and there's not much that can compare to that. There's also Wrath, one of the 7 deadly sins appearing in Dis, whose fight effect of enraging an enemy creature for each friendly sin is really just a cherry on top. He's already an insane taunt creature, with the 2 other keywords of Skirmish and Poison to boot. Soul Fiddle and Irestaff could enrage creatures one at a time, and Draco Praco could enrage an entire house at a time, but Wrath offers the ability to choose usually 3 or 4 creatures at a time, anyone on the opponent's board, which can be pretty versatile. And the last Mass Mutation Enrage card is Baranon, who can provide some Ember control with his Reap ability, but can temporarily lose that ability when a certain condition is met. In this case, when a mutant creature is played. Baranon acts as the perfect segue into the next set, Dark Tidings, introducing a creature with similar behaviors, Flamegill Enforcer. Flamegill Enforcer, just like Baranon, can act as Ember control with that action ability, but temporarily loses that ability when the opponent takes the tide. The same goes for Flamegill Enforcer's Evil Twin, who steals with his action instead of captures. But now, here we are in Dark Tidings, the set with, I'd say, the best take on Enraging so far, although it's perhaps still not quite perfect. Here we don't see creatures get enraged one at a time nearly as much. Instead, things tend to get enraged in waves, lots all at once. There are cards like Echo Pearl and Blatant Thievery that do enrage only a single creature, but we'll get back to them in a minute. For now, let's take a look at cards like Old Egad's Evil Twin, who enrages each enemy creature when he's destroyed. That's actually a pretty crazy effect. The opponent will pretty much never want to fight with every creature they control, but Old Egad's Evil Twin forces them to. They are denied the opportunity to reap with those whom they'd much rather reap with, like P.I. Sweven or Subject Kirby. In House Untamed, we see some other crazy enrage effects. Pester Grove is a rare artifact that causes each creature to enter play enraged. It's not helpful in every deck, but it is extremely disruptive for any game plan that doesn't revolve around fighting. Any creature with a powerful reap effect or a solid passive ability is forced to fight the first time they're used rather than reap. Creatures that suffer the most from this are creatures like P.I. Sweven, Scott, Wicolia, Faust the Great, and Comm Officers Hings and Gross. Pester Grove is really one of those play-it-by-ear types of cards, but is one of the most sensational uses of Enraging we've seen thus far. The last couple cards I haven't mentioned are Cross Porpoises and Myliobi. Cross Porpoises is really meant to interact with the tide more than anything else, so the 2 enrages seem more like a bonus than anything else, including adding some neat flavor to the card. Yobi can be dangerous when left undealt with, quickly enraging an entire battle line over just a few turns. But getting back to cards like Echo Pearl and Blatant Thievery, there's a point I wanted to bring up that I think these two cards, and honestly the Dark Tidings set as a whole, encapsulates really well. Enraging, when it happens on its own, isn't strong enough when it's done one creature at a time. It's not potent enough or impactful enough to make a noticeable difference in the long run. This is why cards like Soul Fiddle and Irestaff are so unpopular. Rather, Enraging needs to go one of two ways. The first way is to, sure, go ahead and enrage one or two creatures at a time, but it needs to be accompanied by something else that will leave more of an impact. Blatant Thievery only enrages one creature, but also moves every Ember on that creature to your pool, which can be insane, especially against a Saurian or Sanctum deck. Echo Pearl only enrages one creature, but simultaneously exhausts and stuns it, completely neutralizing it for multiple turns in a row. Cross Purposes only enrages two creatures, but raises the tide for free, an incredibly beneficial effect. The second way is to enrage lots of things at once, and then that way it can become truly disruptive on its own. This is seen in cards we've talked about like Old Egad's Evil Twin and Pestergrove. But those are just my views on the mechanic of enraging. I think the developers of the game have done an excellent job of tweaking this mechanic as the sets have gone by, and I believe Dark Tidings is our most refined incarnation of it yet. Though it's not always the most noticeable or impactful mechanic, I think enraging can be really cool when it's done right. I'm excited to see what new evolutions are brought along with new sets. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on enraging. I would love to hear what you guys think. Thank you all so much for watching, and I cannot wait to see you all again in the next one. See you later.